Views from the Personnel Committee. It was very good. But for me, the most important thing that occurred in the last 2 weeks was the final agreement, Paris Climate Agreement at COP21. Now, there's a little bit of a backstory. The climate change issue was one of the big things that got me involved in politics. I wanted to somehow have an effect on that. And as well, back in my university years, I was involved in a lot of Model UNs, so I'm very familiar with the format, and I followed it very closely. Something I had a real big interest in. When I got to see the final text, I knew right away that it was probably the biggest international agreement that we've seen since the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It contained unprecedented language, professing the operative clauses where it indicated a 1.5 Celsius goal to limit warming above pre-industrial levels. And I'm just going to quote from the preamble and to give you an idea of how important the language is. And a reminder that over 190 countries agreed to this language, which was recognizing that climate change represents, this is the first preamble, recognizing that climate change represents an urgent and potentially irreversible threat to human societies and the planet, and thus requires the widest possible cooperation by all countries. For me, Seychelles continues to feel the many symptoms of climate change, and we saw that this past summer with droughts, water shortage, increased forest fires, coastal flooding, and low snowpack now become a chronic issue. Additionally, Seychelles is uniquely susceptible to sea level rise and is one of the very few places in the world where you'll be bordered on 4 sides by the ocean. To me, this agreement is great news for Seychelles, and that by limiting the worst impacts of climate change, we will potentially open up millions of dollars in future Seychelles Council budgets, and specifically in infrastructure and other types of expenses that we will incur if we do not respond. So in closing, I'd like to move a resolution, which would be to direct staff to draft a letter to our provincial and national cohorts, thanking them for showing their leadership at ParisCOP21 and asking them to ratify the agreement as soon as possible in their government houses and bring forth a domestic action plan aimed at meeting our commitments therein. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone to second that motion to direct staff? Councillor, we've got 3 on this side, in order. Councillor Inkster, Wright and Seegers. Thank you for that, and probably doesn't need any further discussion, and it'll just be asking staff to, and that letter will come through my office, and we'll probably circulate it before we send it off. All those in favor? Thank you very much for bringing that forward. Moving along to Councillor Lutz.